Hello, my name is Spencer French. With me every day is Halloween. And today I'm starting off a series called Fun Reads, where I make jokes about stories that I'm reading. So basically this is an audiobook but with jokes, kind of like bad creepypastas, but more diverse. And to start off this series, I want to start off with the first chapter of the first book of the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, by J.K. Rowling. So yeah, let's just, I don't know what else to say other than let's just start with the story. Yeah, already. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. You're welcome. They were the last people you expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Ugh. Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings. A director, eh? That's impressive. Which made drills. Okay, you're a director of a firm. Okay, Mr. Dursley is a director of a drills firm. That's quite a accomplishment. He was a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large mustache. The mustache was so big that it can cast shade. In fact, people use it as shade. Anyways, Mrs. Dursley was thin and blonde and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over garden fences, spying on her neighbors. Are you sure that they're not that they don't, and I quote, involve in anything strange or mysterious because they didn't hold with such nonsense, and considering that craning her neck to spy on her neighbors is quite strange and mysterious. Anyways, the Dursleys had a small son called Dudley, and in their opinion was no finer boy anywhere. A point argumentative. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but they also had a secret. And their greatest fear was that somebody would discover it. This is also mysterious. So nobody might be curious, though. So they didn't think they could bear if anyone found out about the Potters. Mrs. Potter, Mrs. Dursley's sister, but they hadn't met in several years. In fact, Mrs. Dursley pretended she didn't have a sister, because her sister and her good-for-nothing husband were as undursley-ish as it was possible to be. Undursley-ish? You just made up a word, JK. Okay. That's just Undursley-ish. And the way it's spelled. Okay, you probably can't see this, but the U in front of in the beginning of the word of Undursley-ish is not capitalized. Though that's probably because it's at the near the end of the sentence. Though the D in the Dursley part is. That's kind of weird to me, but that's just me. The Dursleys shuddered to think what the neighbors would say if the Potters arrived in the street. The Dursleys knew that the Potters had a small son too, but they never even seen him. This boy was another good reason for keeping the Potters away. They didn't want Dursley mixing with a child like that. Okay, segregation. That's... Wow. That was... Whew. That was out of nowhere. Moving on. When Mr. and Mrs. Dursley woke up on the dull gray Tuesday, our story starts. Does it have to be a gray and dull Tuesday? Why can't it be a bright sunny Sunday or a or a day with an earthquake or something? No, that is so dull and boring that the day the story starts, it's the day is just dull and gray. That's kind of weird. Anyways, there was nothing about the cloudy skies outside to suggest any that strange and mysterious things would happen to be happening all over the country. I just realized that the first book never really... the first chapter of the first book never really mentions where exactly... what country they are in. Maybe all over the UK... it's just a nitpick, but still. It's just a nitpick. A nitpick. Ugh, boo. It's just a small complaint. Let's just move on. Mr. Dursley hummed as he picked on his most boring tie for work. Most boring tie. And Mrs. Dursley gossiped happily as she wrestled screaming Dudley into his high chair. Wait. Why was he screaming? Good question. None of them noticed a large hanging owl fluttered past the window. Flutter past the window? At 8:30, Mr. Dursley picked up his briefcase. Okay, 8:30. So, depending on how far his work is, he might get in at around 9. Well, I guess he is a director. He can come in later than most everyone else if he's willing. Pecked Mrs. Dursley on the cheek and tried to kiss Dudley goodbye, but missed. Because Dudley was not having a tantrum. I was now having a tantrum and throwing his cereal at the wall. Little tyke, croaked Mr. Dursley as he left the house. He got into his car and backed out number 4 drive. It was on the corner of the street that he noticed the first sign of something peculiar. A map. A cat reading a map. For a second, Mr. Dursley, Dudley Dursley sounded alike. Yeah. Didn't realize what he had seen. Then he didn't realize what he had seen. Then he jerked his head around to look again. This quick movement gave him whiplash. There was a tabby cat standing on the corner of Privet Drive, but there wasn't up in sight. What could he been thinking of? It must have been a trick of a light. That's what horror protagonists say before, well, the slasher came in. Mr. Dursley blinked and stared at the cat. It stared back as Mr. Dursley drove around the corner and up the street. He watched the cat in his mirror. It was now reading the sign that says Privet's Drive. No, looking at the sign. Cats shouldn't read maps or signs. Just keep telling yourself that. Just keep telling yourself that, Mr. Dursley. I seen cats reading books before, so just keep telling yourself that. As Mr. Dursley drove around the corner, Mr. Dursley gave himself a little shake and put the cat out of his mind. As he drove toward the town, he thought of nothing except a large order of drills. He was hoping to get that money. Wait, to give or to get? To give the drills or to get the drills? It didn't say. Good question, though. But on the edge of town, drills were driven out of his mind by something else. As he sat in the usual morning traffic jam, he couldn't help noticing that there seemed to be a lot of strangely dressed people about. People in cloaks. Mr. Dursley couldn't bear people who dressed in funny clothes. So even the way you dress is gonna be judged by these people. Ugh. The get-ups you saw in people, he supposed this was some stupid new fashion. This is cloaks, something people wear in the Middle Ages. I think this is not some fancy new fashion. I doubt that. It's probably some kind of convention or something. He was drumming his fingers on the steering wheel, and his eyes fell on a huddle of these weirdos standing quite close by. They were whispering excitedly together. Mr. Dursley, he was enraged to see that a couple of them wasn't young at all. Why, that man had to be older than he was. How old is Mr. Dursley, then? And wearing an old green cloak. The nerve of him. Old people can go to conventions, so not suspicious. Nothing to see. But then it struck Mr. Dursley that this was probably some silly stunt. For what? A movie? These people were obviously collecting for something. Yes, that would be it. The traffic moved on, and a few minutes later, Mr. Dursley arrived in the Grunnings parking lot. His mind back on drills. Mr. Dursley always sat with his back to the window in his office on the 9th floor. If he hadn't, then he might have found it harder to focus on drills that morning. He didn't see these owls swooping past in broad daylight. Okay, it's not weird that owls are awake in sunlight and daylight. Not all owls are nocturnal, but yeah, it will be strange to see owls swooping around near Dursley's office. So, though people down in the streets did, they punted and gazed open-mouthed as owl after owl sped overhead. Most of them had never seen an owl even at night time. Okay. Never mind. It's not. The joke I was thinking of is not really appropriate for YouTube. Anyways, Mr. Dursley, however, had a perfectly normal owl-free morning. It's kind of surprising that Mr. Dursley never seen the owl when he turned his chair around. Like, I'm assuming that he had one of those chairs that can go around when he can. So it's kind of surprising. And anyways, he yelled at 5 different people. Wait, that's normal for him? He made several important telephone calls and shouted a bit more. He was in a very good mood until lunchtime. Apparently to him, yelling at people is quite good for him. He was in a very good mood until lunchtime, when he thought he stretched his legs and walked across the world to buy himself a bun from the bakery. Nothing else? I would buy a donut or something sweet. Try, huh? I know you're not really into strange stuff, but sweets are not strange. He'd forgotten all the people in the cloaks, until he passed a group of them next to the baker. Next to the bakers. Bakers. He eyed them angrily as he passed. He didn't know why, but they made him uneasy. This bunch were whispering excitedly, too, and that he couldn't see a single collecting tin. It was on his way back to them, clenching a large donut. Oh, okay. Okay, you took my suggestion, Mr. Dursley. Congratulations. That he caught a few words of what they were saying. The Potters. That's right. That's what I heard. Yes, their son, Harry. Okay, so before I continue, this is actually a good example of a good hidden world setting, like for the world is fully revealed, have little hints here and there that it is there. Like the Dursleys are quite normal people, and here they are, and here's some people that's out of the ordinary. Mr. Dursley stopped dead. Fear flooded him. He looked back at the whisperers as if he wanted to say something to them, but thought better of it, because he had to go to work, of course. But seriously, he had work to do, and just hearing the name of your hearing the name that is potentially your great nephew, your nephews, it's kind of disturbing. Mr. Dursley. Oh, I read that. He dashed across the road, hurried up to his office, snapped at his secretary not disturb him, seized his telephone, and almost finished dialing his home number when he changed his mind. He put the receiver back down and stroked his mustache, thinking, no, he was being stupid. Potter wasn't such an unusual name. Is it? How uncommon is Potter as the last name of Potter? That's a good question. I just want to see how many. Hey, can those of you whose last name is Potter write down that on the comments that your last name is Potter, because I want to see how common the last name of Potter is. He was sure there was lots of people called Potter who had a son called Harry. Well, only there could be 4 or 5 Harry Potters in the world, so not that much. Come to think of it, he wasn't even sure his nephew was called Harry. He never even seen the boy. It might have been in Harvey or Harold. Harvey Potter, I think that's the next name of Two-Face is gonna be in the next movie. In the next Batman movie, that is. There was no point in worrying Mrs. Dursley. She always got so upset at any mention of her sister. He didn't blame her. If he had his sister like that. But all the same, those people in cloaks. He found it a lot harder to concentrate on duels that afternoon, and when he left the building at 5 o'clock, he was so worried that he walked straight into someone just outside the store. "Sorry," he grunted, as a tiny old man stumbled and almost fell. It was a few seconds before Mr. Dursley realized that the man was wearing a violet cloak. He didn't seem at all upset at being almost knocked to the ground. Okay, this little old man must have some good stamina. 100% stamina. So, I give him this. So, I tip my hat to you, little old man. Blah, blah, blah. On the contrary, his face split into a wide smile, and in a squeaky voice that I made passerby stare. Don't worry, my dear sir, for nothing could upset me today. Rejoice, for you know who had gone at last. Even muggles like yourself should be celebrating this happy day. I don't know why I gave him that voice, I just did. And the old man hugged Mr. Dursley around the middle and walked off. Mr. Dursley is wondering what the hell just happened. Mr. Dursley stewarded to the spot. He had just been hugged by a complete stranger, you see? Just like I said. He's sweating what in hell happened. He also thought he had been called a muggle, whatever that was. He was rattled. He hurried to his car and set off for home, hoping he was imagining things which he had never hoped before. So even imagining things is just outlawed in the Dursley's life. That's just... ugh. Because he didn't approve of imagination. As he pulled into the driveway of number 4, the first thing he saw, and it didn't improve his mood, was the tabby cat he spotted that morning. It was now sitting on his garden wall. He was sure that it was the same one. It had the same markings around its eyes. Again, it might be a slasher story. "Shoo!" said Mr. Dursley loudly. Oh, hold on. Let me read that line again. "Shoo!" said Mr. Dursley loudly. The cat didn't move. It just gave him a stern look. Okay, so this is either a cat or a statue. Or a reaping angel. Was this normal cat behavior? No! No, it's not. At least I don't think so. Mr. Dursley wondered. Trying to pull himself together, he let himself into the house. He was never determined not to mention anything to his wife, so he's truthful with his wife, then. Good for him. Mrs. Dursley had a nice, normal day. Good for her. She told him over dinner all about Mrs. Nextdoor and Mrs. Nextdoor's proms. Is that her real name, Nextdoor? I'm wondering what her story is. And with her daughter and how Dudley had learned a new word, won't. That's, okay. Mrs. Dursley tried to act normally. When Dudley had been put to bed, he went into the living room in time to catch the last report on the evening news. Now, before I continue, I just realized that Dudley's first and last name is the the first and last initials of Dudley is DD, the same one. So, yeah. And finally, bird watchers everywhere have reported that the nation's owl have been behaving very unusual today. Although normally at night and are hardly ever seen in daylight, there have been just of sightings of birds flying in every direction since sunrise. Experts are unable to explain why the owls have suddenly changed their sleeping patterns. The newscaster allowed himself to grin. Most mysterious. And now over to Jim McGuffin. Huh. So a person can be a MacGuffin. A magical MacGuffin. Huh, who knows? With the weather. Going to be any more showers of owls tonight, Jim? Well, Ted, the weatherman said, I don't know about that, but it's not only the owls that've been acting oddly today. Viewers are as far apart as Kent, Yorkshire, and Dundee. Okay, so another pause in the story. They actually said Yorkshire, which is in England, I'm assuming. So they just confirmed it's in England. So never mind about what I said about earlier. Have been avoiding in to tell me that instead of rain I promised yesterday, they've had a downpour of shooting stars. Perhaps people will have been celebrating bonfire night early. Wait, what's bonfire night? Could somebody tell me in the description, please? Thank you. It's not until next week, folks, but I can promise you what one tonight. Okay. Mr. Dursley sat in his armchair, shooting stars all over Britain. Britain? Do you mean England? I don't think the weatherman mentioned anything about Britain. owls flying by day, uh, by, oh, owls flying by daylight, mysterious people in cloaks all over the place, and whispering about, and a whisper about the Potters. Mrs. Dursley came into the living room carrying 2 cups of tea. It was no good. He had to say something to her, and he cleared his throat nervously. Petunia. Oh, wait, that's the real name. Dear, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you? As he expected, Mrs. Dursley looked shocked and angry. After all, they normally pretend she didn't have a sister. No, she said sharply. Why? Funny stuff on the news, Funny stuff on the news, Mr. Dursley mumbled. Owls, shooting stars, and there are a lot of funny-looking people in town today. So, Mrs. Dursley snapped. Well, I thought maybe it was something to do with, her crowd. Mrs. Dursley snapped her tea through pursed lips. Mrs. Dursley wondered whether he dared to tell her about the name Potter. He decided that he didn't dare. Ooh, she's that she will not go that. Oh, that's just. Ooh. Instead, he said as casually as he could, their son. He'd about Dudley's age now, wouldn't he? I suppose so, said Mrs. Dursley stiffly. What's his name again? Howard, isn't it? Harry. A common name. A nasty common name, if you ask me. Oh yes, said Mr. Dursley. As his heart sinking horribly. Yes, I quite agree. He didn't say another word on the subject, and they went upstairs to bed. So, never mind. While Mrs. Dursley was in the bedroom, Mr. Dursley crept into the bed. Oh, wait, no. While Mrs. Dursley was in the bathroom, Mr. Dursley crept into the bedroom. Crept to the window. Mr. Dursley crept in to the bedroom window. He peered into the front garden, and the cat was still there. Okay, that cat is very, very patient. It was staring down Privet's Drive as though it were waiting for something. He was mentioning things. Could all this have to do with the Potters? If it did, if it got out that they were related to the pair of, well, he didn't think he could bear it. Mrs. Dursley got into bed. The Dursleys, the Dursleys got into bed. Mrs. Dursley fell asleep quickly, but Mr. Dursley lay awake, turning it all over in his mind. His last comforting thought before he fell asleep was that even if the Potters were involved, there was no reason for them to come near him and Mrs. Dursley. The Potters knew very well that he and Petunia thought about them and their kind. He couldn't see how he and Petunia could get mixed up in anything that might be going on. He yawned and turned over. It couldn't affect them. How very wrong he was. What's going to happen next? Mr. Dursley might have been drifting into an uneasy sleep, but the cat on the wall outside was showing signs of sleepiness, and as it was sitting as still as a statue, its eyes fixed and blinking on the far corner of Privet Drive. It didn't so much as quiver when a car door slammed on the next street, nor when 2 owls swooped overhead. In fact, it was nearly midnight before the cat moved at all. Apparently, wizards in this world can be as stiff as statues. I do not know that. A man appeared on the corner, and the cat had been watching, appearing so silently you had thought he just popped out of the ground. Now, I would think I think he would make a sound when he would pop out of the ground. The cat tail was twitched and its eyes narrowed. Nothing like this man had ever seen on Privet Drive. He was tall, thin, and very old. Judging by his silver hair, by the silver in his hair and beard, which were both long enough to tuck into his belt. How long do one need to grow beard so they can tuck in to their pants? That's a good question. In fact, how many people do have that long of a beard and hair? Again, write that down in the comments below. I want to see how many people have this unique length of hair. He was wearing long robes and a purple cloak that swept the ground, and high heels, buckled boots. So basically, he looks fashionable, darling. Yeah, think about it. He does look fashionable, darling. His blue eyes were light, bright, and sparkling behind half-moon spectacles, and his nose was very long and crooked. That's an odd thing to say about one of the Mentors to the main character. But okay. as though it had been broken at least twice. Oh, okay. Does that mean he was in? Does that mean he was part of the? No spoilers. Never mind. This man's name was Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore. Albus Dumbledore seemed to realize that he just arrived in a street where everything from his name to his boots, as well, was welcome. Really? Everybody thinks the same way then the Dursleys? Or at least a similar way? Huh. He was busy rummaging in his cloak. Looking for something, but he didn't realize that he was being watched, because he looked up suddenly. Oh, sorry, I read that last line wrong. It was supposed to be, but he didn't seem to realize he was being watched, because he looked up suddenly. So suddenly that he gave himself whiplash at the cat, which was still staring at him from the other end of the street. For some reason, the sight of the cat seemed to amuse him. How long is the street that Albus Dumbledore can see all the way on from one side to another? Does that mean there's only like 4 houses on each side of the street? Or is there like 8 houses? Too many questions. Let's just move on. He chuckled and muttered, "I should have known." He found what he was looking for in his pocket. It seems to be a silver cigarette lighter. Okay. He flipped it open and held it up in the air and clicked it. The nearest street lamp went out with a little pop and with a little. He clicked it again. The next lamp flickered into darkness. Oh my God! He's gonna start the apocalypse here. Everybody run! Oh wait, no, never mind. At 12 times he clicked the order until the only lights left on the whole street were 2 tiny pinpricks. I don't know. In the distance, which were the eyes of the cat watching him. Again, how long is the street? If anyone looked out of their window now, even beady-eyed Mrs. Dursley, they won't be able to see anything that was happening down there and prevent them and the pavement. How good is Mrs. Dursley seeing? She must have nighttime vision for quite limited nighttime vision. Maybe she was now to think about it, I can imagine her being a spy for an organization. That will be funny. Anyways. Dumbledore slipped the powder back inside his cloak and set off down the street towards number 4, where he sat down on the wall next to the cat. He didn't look at it, but after a moment he spoke to it. "Fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall." Okay. He turned to smile at the tabby cat, but it had gone. Instead, he was smiling at a withered, severe-looking woman who was wearing square glasses exactly the shape of the markings the cat had under its eyes. "Oh God! Shapeshifters! Everybody run!" Her black hair was drawn in she was wearing a cloak, an emerald one. Her black hair was drawn into a tight bun. She was distinctly ruffled. How do you know it was me?" She asked. "My dear Professor, I never seen a cat sit so stiffly. You'd be stiff if you sitting on the brick wall and they— Whoa! Keep it clean! Keep it clean! Damn it! It was already clean and it was made dirty. Oh God, I'm horrible," said Professor McGonagall. "All day, when you could have been celebrating, I must have passed a dozen feasts and parties on my way here. How horrible was this war between he who must not be named and the rest of the Wizarding War? Then, never mind. Might be World War, and might be the Wizarding equivalent of World War I. Anyways, Professor McGonagall sniffed angrily. "Oh yes, celebrating, all right," she said impatiently. "You'd think they would be a bit more careful, but no. Even the Muggles have noticed something's going on. It was in the news." She stroked her head sedulously. His dark living room, giving her whiplash in the process. "I heard it. Flocks of owls, shooting stars. Well, they're not completely stupid. They were bound to know something. Shooting stars down Kent. I bet that was Diggle. He never have much sense." "You can't blame them," said Dumbledore gently. "We had a precious little to celebrate for 11 years. 11 years! They for war with this guy named Voldemort. For 11 years! That's just wow!" I know that, said Professor McGonagall irritably. "But that's no reason to lose our heads. People are being downright careless out on the streets in broad daylight, not even dressed in Muggle clothes, swapping rumors. She she threw a sharp sideways a glance at Dumbledore, as though hoping he was going to tell her something. But he didn't. But he didn't. So she went on. A fine thing it will be if one on the very day you know who seems to have disappeared at last. The Muggles found out about us all. I suppose he really has gone, Dumbledore. It certainly seems so, said Dumbledore. We have much to be thankful for. Would you care for a lemon drop? A what? A lemon drop. They're a kind of Muggle sweet I'm rather fond of. I'm not a fan of lemons. Lemon-based sweets, they're too sour for me. No, thank you, said Mrs. McGonagall, as though she didn't think this was the moment for lemon drops. Though it would be always the time for chocolate. As I say, even if you know even if you know who has gone, my dear Professor, surely a sensible person like yourself can call him by his name. All this you-know-who nonsense. For 11 years, I have been trying to pursue people to call him by his name, by his proper name, Voldemort. Professor McGonagall flinched, but Dumbledore, who was unsinking sticking to lemon drops, seemed not to notice. It all gets so confusing if we keep saying you know who. I never see any reason to be frightened by Voldemort's name. I know you hadn't, said Professor McGonagall, sounding half exasperated, half admiring. But you're different. Everyone knows you're the only one you know. Oh, all right. Voldemort was frightened of. How powerful is Dumbledore if Voldemort is so scared of him? You flattered me, said Dumbledore calmly. Voldemort has powers I will never have. And how powerful is Voldemort if Dumbledore said something like powers I will never have? That's just only because you're too noble. Well, too noble to use them. Okay, that's quite cool. Dumbledore is too noble to use powers. It's lucky it's dark. I haven't blushed so much since Madame Pomfrey told me she liked my new earmuffs. How good is his earmuffs that it's not good? Good question. Professor McGonagall shot a sharp look at Dumbledore and said, "The owls are nothing next to the rumors that are flying around. You know what everyone's saying about he's disappeared. About why he's disappeared. About what finally stopped him. It seems like the Professor McGonagall had reached the point she was most anxious to discuss. The real reason she'd been waiting on a cold, hard wall all day. For neither as a cat nor as a woman had she fixed Dumbledore with a piercing stare as she did now. Now I'm just gonna say it now. I'm imagining her stare melting a mountain right now. It was plain whatever everyone was saying, she was not going to believe it until Dumbledore told her so. I told her it was true. Dumbledore, however, was choosing another lemon drop, and did not answer. What they were saying, she pressed on, is that last night Voldemort turns up in Godric's Hollow. I actually got the card of the person. I got the card of the person that founded Godric's Hollow, or was run away by him. Oh no, the guy that was chased away from his town and made a town near Hogwarts. Never mind. He went to find the Potters. The rumors that Lily and James Potter that they're dead. Dumbledore bowed his head. Professor McGonagall gasped. Lily and James. I can't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Oh, Albus. Dumbledore reached out and patted her on the shoulder. I know, he said happily. Professor McGonagall's voice trembling as she went on. That's not all. They're saying that he tried to kill the Potter's son, Harry, but he couldn't. He couldn't kill that little boy. No one knows why or how, but they're saying that when he couldn't kill Harry Potter, Voldemort's powers somehow broke, and that's why he's gone. Whatever happened to the baby? Okay, whatever anyone did that night, that is a very powerful spell to put on. A protective spell on Harry. We can only guess, son Dumbledore. We may never know. Professor McGonagall pulled out a handkerchief. Adapted her eyes and spectacles. Dumbledore gave a great sniff and took a golden watch from pocket. I skipped a few. Dumbledore nodded glumly. It's true, heard from Professor McGonagall. After all he's done, all the people he killed, he couldn't kill a baby? It's just astounding. Of all things to stop him, how in the name of heaven did Harry survive? Good question. We can never guess, and we can only guess, said Dumbledore. We may never know. Professor McGonagall pulled out a lace handkerchief and dabbed her eyes beneath her spectacles. Dumbledore gave a great sniff and took a golden watch from his pocket and examined it. It was a very odd watch. Sorry. It has 12 hands, but no numbers. Instead, planets were moving and around on the edge. So I'm assuming this is just all the planets in the solar system and how they move and stuff. It must have made sense to Dumbledore, though, because he put it back in his pocket and said, "Hagrid's late. I suppose it was he who told you I'd be here. By the way." "Yes," said Professor McGonagall. "Now I don't suppose you're telling me why you're here, of all places." "I've come to bring Harry to his aunt and uncle. They're the only family he has left now." "What about Lily's and Petunia's parents? Aren't they alive?" I mean, J.K. Rowling revealed that Harry's grandparents on the other side of his family is dead. And his father's side of the family is dead, so why not? And so it makes sense. And so why not his grandparents on his mother's side? You can't mean the people who live here," cried McGonagall, jumping to her feet, pointing at number 4. "Dumbledore, you can't. I've been watching them all day. You can't find two people who are less like us, and they've got the son. I saw him kicking his mother all the way up the street, screaming for sweets. That brat. Well, you succeed, J.K. Rowling. You made me hate Dudley. In one sentence. Harry Potter come and live here. It's the best place for him. Why? Why? Why would this be the best place for him?" said Dumbledore firmly. "His aunt and uncle would be able to explain everything to him when he is older. I've written them a letter." "I don't think that's gonna work, Dumbledore. I'm sorry. It's not gonna work." "A letter," repeated Professor McGonagall, faintly, sitting back down on the wall. "Really, Dumbledore, you think you can explain in all this in a letter? These people will never understand him. He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day." "Well, as the saying goes, heroes get remembered, but legends never die. In the future, there will be books written about Harry. Every child in the world..." "Oh, wait a minute. Does that count this book? Is this book really happened?" That's actually good. J.K. Rowling. Does that mean J.K. Rowling is a wizard? That's kind of a cool idea. That's actually a good idea. See? Da-da-da-da. Every child in the world will know its name. Exactly. Exactly. Said. Say. Exactly. Said Dumbledore, looking seriously over the top of his half-moon glasses. It would be enough to turn any boy's head. Famous before he could walk and talk. Famous for something he wouldn't even remember. Can't you see much better off he'll be growing up from all that until he's ready to take it? Well, I mean, one could put him in a household where he could not do that, and well, he would not grow up, and where he could grow up with the fame and not let that fame go to his head. You know what I'm saying? Professor McGonagall opened her mouth. Change her mind. That was weirdly worded. I swallowed and said, yes, you're right, of course, but how is the boy getting here, Dumbledore? She eyed the cloak suddenly, as though she thought he might be hiding underneath it. Hagrid sprang him. You think it wise to trust Hagrid with something as important as this? I would trust Hagrid with my life, said Dumbledore. I'm not saying that his heart isn't in the right place, said Professor McGonagall, but you can't pretend that he's not careless. He does tend to what was that? A low rumbling sound has broken the silence around them. It grows steadily louder as they look up and down the street for some sign of headlight. It swelled into a wall as they both looked up at the sky, and a huge motorcycle fell out of the air and landed on the road in front of them. How did nobody woke up and look out of the window? I mean, the people of Privet Drive must be heavy sleepers, people. Very heavy sleepers. I lost my place. Moment. On the road in front of them. If the motorcycle was huge, it was nothing to the man sitting straight on it. He was almost twice as tall as a normal man, at least 5 times, and at least 5 times as wide. He looked simply too big to be allowed, and so wide, long tendrils of bushy black hair and beard nipped most of his face. He had hands the size of trash can lids, and his feet, in their leather boots, were like a baby's It's like we're like a baby dolphins. We're like baby dolphins in a fast muscular arm. In his muscular arms, he was holding a bundle of blankets. Hagrid. Dumbledore sound relieved. At last, and here, and where did get that motorcycle? Good question. Borrowed it, Professor Dumbledore, sir, the giant said, climbing off it, and off the motorcycle as he spoke. A young Sirius Black lended it to me. I've got him, sir. No problems there. Were there? No problems, were there? No, sir. No, sir. Was almost destroyed, but I got. Hold on. No, sir. But no, sir. But house. No, sir. House was almost destroyed, but I got him out all right. Before the Muggles started swarming around, he fell asleep as we was flying over Bristol. Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall bent over the bundle of blankets inside. Bent over the bundle of blankets. Inside, just visible, was a baby boy fast asleep. Under the trough of a jet black hair over his forehead, they could see a curiously shaped cut like a lightning bolt. I'm wondering how he got that exact. Not the cut itself, but how the cut was shaped. Like, did a lightning bolt strike his head? That must be painful for him. Is that where whispered Professor McGonagall? Oh, never mind. Yes, said Dumbledore. He'll have that scar forever. Can't you do something about it, Dumbledore? Even if I could, I wouldn't. Scars can come in handy. I have one myself above my left knee. That is a perfect map of the London Underground. What is the London Underground again? Can somebody tell me that in the comments too? Well, give him here, Hagrid. We'd better get this over with. Dumbledore took Harry in his arms and turned towards the Dursleys' house. Could I say goodbye to him, sir? Asked Hagrid. He bent over. He bent his great, shaky head over, and Harry, and over Harry's head, shaky head over Harry, and gave him what must have been a very scratchy whisker kiss. Must be. Then suddenly, Hagrid let out a howl like a dog. Oh God, God, that's just hilarious to think of. His Professor McGonagall. You'll wake up the Muggles, sorry, sobbed. Sorry, Hagrid. Sobbed Hagrid, taking out a large spot chief and to bury his face in it. But I can't stand it. Lily and James dead, and poor little Potter and little Harry off to live with Michael's. Yes, it's all very sad, but please get a grip on yourself, Hagrid, or will it be found? Professor McGonagall whispered, and patting Hagrid's gingerly on the arm as Dumbledore stepped over the low garden wall and walked to the front door. He laid gently on the doorstep and took a letter out of his cloak and tucked into Harry's blanket. It let it blow off into the wind once in a while, but Dumbledore always catch it and put it back in until finally he put it in just the right way, and then come back to the other two. For a full minute, the three stood and looked at the bundle. One would think they would just wait until morn. One would think they would just stand there for a half hour. Hagrid's shoulders shook. Professor McGonagall blinked fiercely, and the twinkling light that was usually shown from Dumbledore's eyes seems to have gone out. Damn! This is just a... Well, said Dumbledore finally. Said Dumbledore finally. That was just scary. That was sudden out of nowhere. That was scary. That's that. We've no business staying here. We may as well we may as well go and join the celebrations. Lots of stuff. Sorry, Steamy. Yeah, said Hagrid in a very muffled voice. We'll be taking Sirius his bike back. Good night, Professor McGonagall. Professor Dumbledore, wiping his eyes on his jacket sleeve. Hagrid swung himself onto the motorcycle and kicked the engine into the light. Kicked into life. It's alive! The motorcycle's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! Which roar? It's a roar and rolls to the air and off into the night. Yet again, the people of Privet Drive must be very heavy sleepers. I shall see you I'll see you soon. I expect Professor McGonagall, said Dumbledore, nodding to her. Professor McGonagall blew nose in reply. Dumbledore turned and then walked back to the street. On the corner, he stopped and took out the silver put-outer. He clicked it once, and 12 balls of light spread back to the street so that Privet Drive glowed suddenly orange, and that he could make out the tabby cat slinking around the corner at the other end of the street. He could just see the bundle of blankets on the step of number 4. Good luck, Harry Potter, he nodded, as he turned the heel, which with a swish of his cloak, he was gone. A breeze ruffled the neat hedges of Privet Drive, which lay silent and under the inky sky. At the very last place you expect astonishing things to happen. So everywhere is basically the last place you expect astonishing things to happen. Harry Potter rolled over beside his blankets without looking up. One small hand closed the other beside him, and he slept on, not knowing he was special, not knowing he was famous, not knowing he will be woken up in a few hours by Mrs. Darcy's scream. That is quite a start, as she opened the door to put out the milk bottles. Nor that he would spend the next few weeks being prodded and pinched by his cousin Dudley. He couldn't know that at this very moment, people meeting in secret all over the country, holding up their glasses and saying in harsh voices to Harry Potter, "The boy who lives." And that is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Chapter 1, the boy who lived. What do you guys think of the series? What do you guys think of this? Do you think I should continue on with fun reads, or should I just stop? If you like this, please push the like button, and if are not already, please subscribe to my channel and ring that bell so you can get all my subscriptions, all my videos, and if you have the money to spare, donate money. Please donate the money to my Patreon, and please, I'd be grateful if you do. So happy Halloween, everybody.